Lincoln follows the good old President Abe during the final 4 months of his life. The story mainly focuses on his effort to abolish slavery and get the 13th Amendment passed by the House of Representatives, all while interacting with an insane ensemble cast, including Sally Field as his wife Mary, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as his son, Tommy Lee Jones as Congressman Thaddeus Stevens, Adam Driver and Dane DeHaan pop up, Jack Earl Haley's in a couple of scenes, and hey, Tim Blake Nelson! So we have a scene with Bill the Butcher, Forrest Gump's mum, Robin, Two-Face, Kylo Ren, the Green Goblin, Rorschach, and the Counselor from Holes. Nice.
Oh my god. It's true.
Based on the novel Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin, the author had informed Spielzebub of her project in 1999, and he immediately demanded the film rights, which were required by DreamWorks 2 years later. By the end of 2001, John Logan was picked up to write the screenplay, focusing the Abraham Lincoln's friendship with Frederick Douglass, bringing in playwright Paul Webb to make some rewrites, planning to start shooting in January 2006. Unfortunately, things didn't work out with Webb, and he was promptly replaced by Tony Kushner, who considered Lincoln to be the greatest Democratic leader in the world, but this actually made his job incredibly daunting. I have no idea what made him great. I don't understand what he did any more than I understand how William Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, or Mozart wrote Così fan tutte. So why do you think he's great then?
Stuff.
However, Kushner heavily researched Abraham Lincoln, joking that he read around 967,000 books on the guy. His initial script was 500 pages long, and it focused on the final 4 months of his life, while his later scripts focused more on the final 2. Likewise, Spielberg spent the better part of 12 years researching Abraham Lincoln, even recreating his mansion office precisely with the exact same wallpaper and books that Abe used. The ticking of his watch in the movie is actually the sound of Lincoln's real pocket watch. Man, this guy's attention to detail is insane.
Is that true?
It was in 2003 when Spielberg approached Daniel Day-Lewis to play the lead, but he actually turned it down, claiming that the idea of him playing Abraham Lincoln was preposterous. So in January 2005, none other than Liam Neeson was picked, reuniting with Spielberg 12 years after Schindler's List. I can see it.
I'd help you.
To prepare for the role, Neeson also heavily studied good old Abe, but it wasn't meant to be. Spielberg was seeking a $50 million budget with Paramount as the distributor, but they constantly pushed the project back as they felt it was too similar to Amistad, which was a commercial flop. In February 2009, Paramount officially dropped the project, and the distribution then shifted over to Walt Disney. Movie about racism, sounds about right.
That's right, sir.
However, DreamWorks were financing the film and began to have second thoughts, so they brought on 20th Century Fox to split the duties. But due to the constant delays, in July 2010, Liam Neeson officially left the production, claiming that he was now too old to play the part. Abraham Lincoln was 56 years old when he died. At this point, Liam Neeson was 58.
I can't make sense of it.
Though co-star Sally Field was convinced that Neeson's real decision to leave the production was the untimely death of his wife a year earlier. But Neeson maintained that it wasn't the role for him, and he even suggested Daniel Day-Lewis. Both he and Leonardo DiCaprio actually had to talk to the guy to convince him to take on the part, and it was finally confirmed in November 2010. Spielberg did confess that after Neeson dropped out, if Daniel Day-Lewis said no, he wouldn't have made the movie at all.
Compromise.
Sally Field was so determined to play Abe's wife that she begged Spielberg for the job, but he believed that she was far too old for the part. However, she remained adamant, and Daniel Day-Lewis even flew over from his Ireland home to do a screen test with her, which not only won her the part, but an Academy Award nomination.
It was a spectacle.
Lincoln was released on October the 8th, 2012 and was a huge hit, earning $275.2 million at the box office against a budget of just $65 million, and it was well received by fans and critics, particularly for the sheer uncanny performance by the lead. However, though historians applauded the film, they did call into question its inaccuracy at points. The movie indicates that there was a possibility the war could have ended with slavery still intact, obviously a filmmaking ploy to add suspense nearer the end of the picture. The movie also seems to imply that the 13th Amendment originated by Lincoln himself, when in reality it began with a Women's National Loyal League petition in 1864. However, most historians agree that Daniel Day-Lewis's portrayal of Abraham Lincoln was incredibly uncanny. Even the way he walks, based on historical records, was spot on. And I can't dispute that. The makeup looks insane. He looks just like the guy. In addition, the performance is one of the greatest I have ever seen. Everything from the accent to the tiny mannerisms, it's complete perfection.
I heard tell once of a Jefferson City lawyer
who had a parrot. I'd wake him each morning, crying out, "Today is the day the world shall end." Right before I left her in the room, she asked me where she could get a good drink of water, and I told her, Tennessee. You see, there it is, even in that 2,000-year-old book of mechanical law. It is a self-evident truth that things which are equal to the same thing. Just this once, Mrs. Lincoln, I demand of you to try and take the liberal and not the selfish point of view. If there be no fault in the machinery, I will do. And when up, it'll be for the people to keep it up.
Party on, dudes!
And hey, at least it opens immediately with war and brutality. Spielberg's just decided not even try to hide his fetish for misery anymore.
Now that white people have accustomed themselves to seeing Negro men with guns fighting on their behalf, and now that they can tolerate Negro soldiers getting equal pay, maybe in a few years they can abide the idea of Negro lieutenants and captains.
Meanwhile, in the tough, struggling life of the white man.
You're making me the villain by demonizing my race for things I didn't do and decisions I didn't make.
Now, I'm not massively into politics, so a lot of this film doesn't really hit home for me.
20 House Democrats who will vote to abolish slavery, in my opinion.
To which I always listen.
I use the law allowing for the seizure of property in a war, knowing it applies only to the property of governments and citizens of belligerent nations. But the South ain't a nation.
It is pretty slow paced, clocking in at 2.5 hours, but that's down to my short attention span and not the quality of the movie. Because it does tell its story pretty cohesively. And it does have a great and powerful message.
We do away with slavery, the Rebs will quit fighting. Since slavery is what they're fighting for, Mr. Lincoln.
Mr. Lincoln, I hate them all. I do. All black people.
I can't accomplish a goddamn thing of any human meaning or worth until we cure ourselves of slavery and end this pestilential war.
It does show what a wholesome guy Lincoln was and how he was always just trying to fight for the right thing.
I felt I was within my power to do it. However, I also felt that I might be wrong about that. I knew the people would tell me. I gave them 1.5 years to think about it, and they re-elected me. I might be wrong, Mr. Hutton, but I expect colored people most likely be free. This amendment is that cure!
I just love the fact that Lincoln is a surprising president because he's not a cunt.
If passed, shall set at immediate liberty 4 million coloreds while manacling the limbs of the white race in America. If it is passed, but it shall not pass.
That's one way to get sued by Peter Jackson.
And you, Pendleton, you insult God!
I mean, that dude drowned Egyptian babies. I don't think he's the one you want to look to for a moral compass. Speaking of which, it's a real shame to see how things were back then.
Kind that hates niggers. Hates God for making niggers.
The good Lord on high would despair of their souls.
I mean, white people in the movie get so outraged at the concept of erasing slavery.
We'll lose every Democrat we've got. More than likely, conservative Republicans will join them, and all our work, all our preparing the ground for the vote laid waste for naught.
And the most basic of sentences get rounds of applause.
I'm disgusted by slavery.
I don't like slaughtering babies.
Votes for women?
Oh.
I can't vote for the amendment, Mr. Lincoln.
Tyrone shines my shoes, and I don't want to give that up. Disclaimer, Rob is mocking racism and is therefore not being racist. This joke is merely aimed at the silly white folk who refuse to acknowledge people of colour not being objects of slavery. Please do not cancel him again.
God damn it, I'm voting yes.
I mean, the sheer fact that we had to do an entire trial to determine if black people are equal to white people shows how backwards we were as a fucking species. So, jury, what's your verdict on raping old ladies?
Nay. I can't concentrate on British mercantile law. I don't care about British mercantile law.
But I do care about bad continuity editing. Seriously, how does Spielberg perfect everything else but still continues to make the exact same bad cutting error in his movies? Joseph Gordon-Levitt is actually pretty bad in this. He's like a kid trying to play dress up in his dad's suit.
I might not even want to be a lawyer.
I am a grown man. He just always comes across as a really awkward dude. He doesn't come across as an actor in a film. It's like he wandered on the set and someone just shoved him in front of the camera for a laugh.
I have to do this, and I will. Or I will feel ashamed of myself for the rest of my life. Whether or not you fought is what's gonna matter, and not just to other people, but to myself.
Okay, got a little better there. Sally Field I think gets forgotten here. She gives a great performance that I think gets overshadowed by Daniel Day-Lewis, which is a real shame.
This is the face of someone who has fought long and hard for the good of the people without caring much for any of them.
And in a few more decades' time, I'll shoot another president in the head, so don't get in my bad books, mister. To be fair, Tommy Lee Jones is actually pretty good in this. But even when he's on the good side, he still fucks it up.
You denied Negro equality. I'm nauseated. You refuse to say that all humans are, well, human.
The trial was also slightly different to the real life events. The movie has everyone vocalise their votes when in reality it was a paper toll. Also, every character in the movie prior to this were real life people, but for this trial the names given to the people who vote were all fictionalised, as Spielberg didn't want to embarrass the descendants of those who, said slavery was kind of alright.
We've won the war. Now, you have to lead us out of it.
So how about a nice trip to the theatre?
The president has been shot.
I do have to say, I love the fake out that we cut to a theatre so you expect this to be where he dies, only for it to be an announcement that he's died elsewhere. It's pretty clever. It's a slow film, but a damn powerful one. The lead performance is spectacular, and as far as historical accuracy goes, it's actually pretty damn solid. Only a few minor things have been changed, and it's just a really well told story of a really great man.